Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Duckville here. Welcome to another vintage StarCraft episode featuring a very old set of players here. They've been around for a very long time, but they are still around in the scene to this day, which is pretty impressive nonetheless. It is going to be on everybody's favorite two-player map. Of course, we are on Steps of War. This vintage StarCraft episode will be coming to you all the way back from August 9th, 2010. A few days after the previous vintage StarCraft episode, which was on August 6th, if memory serves me right. This one is going to be a Protoss versus Terran, as you can see from the names. They're two very famous names, one of them playing a little bit of an off-race here. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but down at the bottom left-hand side, we have our first player here. At the time, playing for ATN, and as you can see, it is Socke, who has been around for the longest of times when it comes to StarCraft. And I mean, he was around from basically from beta and did quite well during that. Is still around to this day in StarCraft Wings of Liberty now, and you know, he's still a player that we see quite a lot at EU events and these kinds of things. So it is really good to see that some of the players have stuck around for a very long time. Keep in mind, actually, we'll do that in a second. His opposing player up here at the top right-hand side is, of course, playing as a Terran, which you would really not see him play as these days, just due to the fact that he is one of the world's best Protoss players. It is Naniwa. At the time, sponsored by Razer, I think, well, as you can see from his name, there's a little bit of a sponsorship from Razer. I don't remember exactly which team Naniwa was in at this time. Like, we've got SRS, but I can't remember which team that was. But I know that Naniwa, during beta and then during the initial part of StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty, bounced around between a few teams. Of course, there was MTW, MYM, and then, you know, of course, many of you will be aware of some of the teams after that. But yeah, Naniwa, you know, still to this day, one of the best players in the game, and it shows that you know, you can play for so long and still be one of the best players in the scene. Now, as with the previous vintage StarCraft episode, please do keep in mind there are some technical limitations, we'll call them, as to the availability of me to do certain things, such as the nameplates up the top. We don't have any of that just because that was not, well, the technology wasn't around at the time for that kind of thing. So that is not available, so I'm going to put one up myself right about now. And also, you know, the production tab, it's a lot different. As you can see here, it looks a little bit clunkier. You'll see some of the icons are actually a little bit different too, which is pretty interesting to see. And no doubt as well, we can also see that the resource counter up at the top right-hand side is not as, it doesn't have both players as it efficiently does these days. So this is Steps of War, of course, the smallest map to ever exist in StarCraft 2, if I got my numbers correctly. It's, as you can see from Naniwa, he actually set this SCV out about you know, 10 seconds ago. We'll follow the path back from this SCV just in case you guys have never played on this map. Actually, we'll follow ourselves. So we were just in Socke's main base. Now we're in Naniwa's. It is a very tiny map. Back in the day, this map was used for a couple of tournaments, if I remember correctly, but hilarious, actually it was also used in quite a few of the early GSLs, if I remember correctly as well. So it's a very small map. There is almost no distance between the two naturals of the players. Speaking of the naturals, siegeable from the low ground if you're a Terran player. There is a very large ramp over here as well. Keep in mind, guys, I can't actually use SC2 Tactician, so I can't draw my arrows and things like that in this cast, unfortunately. But yeah, this was a map where one base play was very popular, especially for Terran players, just because of the short distance, the availability of tanks and things like that to be quite annoying. And we'll see how Naniwa is going to play it out here. Keep in mind, I'm sure some of you will remember, back in the day there was a build known as the 3-2-1. It was a 3 racks, 2 factory, and then a single starport build where you would get out a lot of Marines. It was very tailorable, actually. It's for if you weren't around at the time, think of the 1-1-1, but just a slightly different way to go about it. So that was what one thing that caused Protoss players a little bit of trouble. So we'll see that Socke has actually gone for a little bit of a different build. In fact, even in sort of 1v1 PvT these days, the old Stargate Phoenix is something which you don't get to see too often. Of course, these days in Heart of the Swarm, we've got the wonderful Oracle unit, which can help out with your harassment. But Socke gonna get out this this Phoenix, and he's going to find that there is a Banshee attempting to float about the map. The Banshee goes down straight away, and that will be the end of that for the moment. So Naniwa loses his first harassing unit, and Socke gets a good scout on what's going on inside the main base. So he's going to see, you know, standard sort of stuff. The 2 racks are going down here. We can see the starport, the factory as well. He's going to see that there are a few Marines out along with a tank. So we're going to transition into what is most likely a 1 base play. Now, as we all know, Naniwa did actually play Protoss through the beta as well. He was one of the first players to secure the Go for SC2. Oh no, it was Zotac. Sorry, Zotac Cup. He won 3 Zotacs in a row, and you know, that was pretty impressive for that kind of timing, and that got him some certainly some notoriety from that. Not to mention the fact that he was a little bit of a decent player in Warcraft 3. If you know, if we're going to talk about those kinds of things. So, Naniwa, certainly a player to not to be trifled with. And as we can see, Socke is going to play it out very, very safe. We've got a Forge starting up with a +1 armor already on the way. He's got a Robo Facility getting out an Observer as well to help out with detection for that Banshee if it comes back across. Twilight Council going up. All the things are going up. This is very much what like early Wings of Liberty looked like to you know, to the average player, just because it was very difficult to secure multiple bases, especially on a map like this, where you've got a natural, then you've kind of got a third, but it's behind some rocks, so you've got a third that's over here, but then that also has a very exposed ramp as well, and then after that, securing a 4th base is a little bit of a laughable matter, so that's why, you know, lots of 1 base plays were very common during the early inception of basically any matchup, really. I mean, you can see, you can even see some Zerg games like ZVP and ZVT games that were basically 1 or 2 bases only, and it was really interesting to watch. But it was very much dependent on the maps as well. So, speaking of the maps, we'll just talk a little bit more about Steps of War. There are 2 gold bases, as you can see. They're in very exposed positions. There's a lot of attack paths to get in here, and there is also a Zelnaga watchtower that covers both of the gold bases there. So that is something which you do need to keep in mind. There is a base up in the corner as well, but that is protected by some destructible debris. And you know, this is a very difficult map, as we said, for Protoss players, just because they had to deal with these kinds of pushes that come along, and it looks like Socke is going to be able to deal with a couple of those Banshees. Takes out 1, but there are still a lot of tanks on the ground. 5 tanks. We've got Marines here as well, along with some SCVs, going to repair up some of these units. And Naniwa is going to look for this big push here. Phoenix from Socke going to try and catch up with that Banshee. That Banshee is so low right now, and he needs to repair that up as quickly as he can. Back at home for Socke, we've got an Immortal. We do have quite a lot of Zealots as well, which is really going to help him out. He does have the Charge being researched right now, so that's still a little while away. As you can see on the production tab, we don't actually get to see how much is done, but there you go. It's just about finished up, and once he has that, Socke is going to be very, very comfortable with his position here. But as we can see, Naniwa left his base, you know, about 2 seconds ago. He's now sieging up on Socke's natural expand here. So Socke now moving out. The Zealots running forward to tank. Phoenix running across the lift up all the tanks. Wonderfully done there by Socke. Removes quite a lot of the damage from those tanks. The Immortals come across, not really target firing the tanks, unfortunately. It would be good to see him target those down, but the Immortal still doing a lot of good work there, and it looks as if Naniwa will be forced back. I think that Socke is going to die in the end. Yeah, it looks like he will. I'll tell you what, I'm going to turn on the hit point bars just because there was no, normally in the normal casting I actually use the damaged hit point bars just because they look a bit nicer. You get to see what's damaged and what's not, and then that's about it. But in this, that wasn't around. We only had on and off. That was it. So we can see that this Phoenix still floating about, trying to see what's going on, trying to catch that Banshee. 10 HP on that Banshee. That is very lucky to still be alive. 1 shot from the Phoenix will take that down. And as you can see, Naniwa forced to back off for the moment. He is going to have to macro up. And back at home, he has gotten up a command center. And I say macro up, and some of you are thinking, haha, that's laughable. He's only on 1 base. Well, as we were talking about, 1 base, 2 base is pretty much macro in StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty during August of 2010, when people were still learning the game. We're still learning the game, still trying to figure out how the hell to play maps like Steps of War that are just tiny, because for some reason Blizzard thought that the game was going to be a bit more exciting with this kind of thing. And I mean, sometimes it was. You got to see some really cool games on this map, like various sorts of spine crawler pushes from Zerg players and other things like that. You know, it was exciting sometimes, but I mean, a lot of the time it was very, very quick gaming on Steps of War. And now we can see Socke coming across. Not too often you get to see two Phoenix harassing a moving orbital command coming down to the natural, but here we go, we actually do have it. And just looking at the worker tab, we've currently got 26 SCVs out for Naniwa at the moment, so he's a little bit behind with that. He has not started any upgrades at the moment. We can see that the 1-1 is still just sitting there for the time being. However, back at home for Socke, he's got a total of 36 probes in his main base here. Finally now expanding to the natural at the 14-minute mark is when we're going to get our expansions here on Steps of War. He is researching Storm as well, so keep that in mind. Socke is going to have some really powerful Templar out on the field very soon. His Phoenix still doing quite a lot of harassment. These guys have been around for quite a while now. 2, 3, and 4 kills. No, 0 kills on that one. But yeah, they've been doing a really nice job. So Naniwa is showing us I'm trying to remember if Naniwa actually tried to play some Terran at one point, or whether it was just I think this was some sort of practice match or something like that, just to see if Nani was able to take Socke down with Terran, because I remember there is actually an article on Ghost of Gamers that I looked up just before I started casting this, where Naniwa was talking about how incredibly overpowered Terran was, and I'm sure some of you will agree. They did win quite a lot of the tournaments right at the start, and there was a period of time where it was basically GOM TVT. I'm sure everyone remembers all of that. GOM TVT Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was quite a hilarious thing to see. But, you know, we can see now that Socke in a comfortable position. He's got a nice economy up and running. 39 probes now out for the Protoss player. He's got his gateways now coming up. A little cannon here at the natural base to help out with defense against the Phoenix as well. Against the Banshees as well. And one thing which is going to make the Protoss players cry, the Kadaran Amulet. Does anyone remember this? Who remembers Warp-In Storms? Because that could be what we're going to see here from our German Protoss player from ATN. He's going to have that. Now, if you're wondering what this was, if you didn't play Brood War and get to use the Kadaran Amulet or play very early Wings of Liberty before it was taken out of the game, this basically gave your Templar an extra little dose of starting energy. Normally they start with, what is it, it's 50, if I remember correctly. The Kadaran Amulet gives you an extra little dash of energy when you first warp in the Templar, so they actually can start up with a Storm. And what was a very common, a very strong tactic was Protoss players would throw down a proxy pylon such as this one, warp in a Templar, walk him across and throw down a Storm. And then it's like, well, alright, I got a Storm, that's a very efficient kind of damage coming out of a single Templar. That's all good. And then of course, you know, there was the old the Warp Prism drop. You bring in a Warp Prism, warp in a couple of Templar, and then just run over and Storm. No need to wait for energy. You could just do it straight away. So this was a very sort of dangerous time for Terran players when they had to deal with Warp-In Storms and these kinds of things. But we can see Socke is looking to expand. He's going to take a third base just up to the left-hand side of the map. Has cleared out the destructible rocks that were here. And he's just going to play a very comfortable macro game at this point. So Socke playing very comfortably, nice and passive for the time being. But that's not to say that he can't, you know, look very threatening at this point. He's got his 100 on his upgrades right now, +2 on the armor. Is now researching. You know, we can see this is before the time of when players would sort of look at the creator builds with double forges spinning around, getting your double upgrades going, these kinds of things. And you know, this is before all this kind of stuff was invented. So we can see that, speaking of upgrades, let's have a quick look at what Naniwa has got. Still 0-0 on his ground units right now. Has this mixture of sort of bio-mech units going on right now. We've got some Banshees up in the sky, a couple of Vikings are present as well, along with a Raven. Then we've got lots of Marines on the ground. A few Marauders have been thrown in for good measure, but it's a very mishmash sort of group of units here from Naniwa, and I'm not particularly sure whether this was because he was off racing at this point, or whether it was because he was just sort of, I don't know, just completely has not really sort of understood the dynamics of this particular matchup. But then again, as we were saying, it's still a very evolving kind of time in StarCraft 2. But one thing which, you know, regardless of whether he knew which particular composition to go for, no upgrades on anything at all is a little bit of a dangerous sort of thing for Naniwa at this point. But he is now moving up slowly, looking to take this base up at the right-hand corner of the map. A couple of Zealots going to warp in. The Templar, there you go. Look at that guy. He just warped in, and he's got enough energy for a Storm there. In fact, there you go. Socke throws down the Storm, gets a little bit of damage on those Marines, and this was the problem with the Kadaran Amulet. And I mean, as a Protoss player, well, sort of maining as a Protoss player, but I do play random these days, losing Kadaran Amulet was a bit of a little bit of an unfortunate situation, but I think we can all agree it was very, very strong to drop in a Templar, well, you know, just sort of warp in a Templar and instantly Storm. So it's interesting to consider what kind of, you know, what kind of situation we would be in if that was still around right now. But as you can see, Naniwa now securing his third base. It's about time. Has this command center up and running. Is that misplaced a little? I think that might be misplaced. Just slightly. I'm not actually sure. We didn't see it land properly. But anyway, he is now almost, well, he's almost at 150 supply. Not looking too bad now is our Terran player. Having a little bit of off-race fun right now. Naniwa up at 145. His opponent currently sitting at 146. These guys both looking to max out very soon. Socke trying to take a gold base, which is a little bit daring on his behalf. It looks like there was a Warp Prism attempting to come across through the top side of the map, but not quick enough. The Vikings there, the Banshees and Raver just floating about, all trying to find out where that Warp Prism was, but a turret is also here to help out with the defense. So both players are looking like they're going to make some maneuvers here, and Naniwa is going to be the first one. He's just moved out of his natural base here. The tanks are going to have to siege up because some of those Terran units are approaching. There is even a carrier out on the map. Guys, this is pretty crazy to see a carrier in PvT in this day and age. So looks like, oh wow, the Storms are absolutely massive at that point. Holy moly, Naniwa just got completely wrecked there. He still does not have any upgrades, so even if these Marines get into battle, they are going to be torn apart by some of these Zealots. They've got +2 on their armor. Interestingly, there is only one sentry here for Socke, so he's going to have like you know, a few force fields or just that one Guardian shield going up, so that's not going to help him out too much. But what Naniwa has done is he has slowly crept across from his natural. We've sieged up some of these tanks, and now we're setting up some turrets for defense. This is very, very Brood War-esque kind of play here from Naniwa at this point. So Socke gonna lose his natural bases. It's gonna be very difficult to hold that together, but it looks like we may have another battle here. Raven prepared. Where is the point defense drone from Naniwa? He also, he was researching Cloak earlier on in the game, but did not complete that. So these Banshees can't go around too much to get some harassment going. But speaking of harassment, the third base of Naniwa has been under threat for quite a while. These Zealots now coming through, getting some harassment done on that base. The SCVs forced to run away. And a few tanks, a few Marines, and a couple of Ghosts are going to come across to try and save the day. Looks like those Zealots will go to town. The Ghosts forced away, an EMP, some snipes, some little bit of signs to come of what's going to be happening with PvT in the future at this point. But Socke sitting very comfortably on three bases, I suppose. He's not actually mining from this one. But 3 bases, one of them is the gold, but he does have a very dangerous mixture of units down here on the low ground in the center for Naniwa. There are a lot of tanks, we've got a lot of turrets to protect against those carriers, and now there is even a mothership out on the field. Look at that girl go. This the mothership actually went through quite a few changes during beta and also the just after release of Wings of Liberty. If memory serves me right, we actually had the mothership core change around with its speed quite a few times, just because the acceleration, the actual general movement speed of this this bad boy was a little bit of a contentious point. Was it too fast? Was it too slow? All these things really came into the fold when it came to balance testing in early Wings of Liberty. So as we can see, 1.41 as the movement speed. The carriers are actually just a tiny bit faster than that, if I remember right. And you know, so it's not too bad to have that much speed on the mothership. But I mean, now of course the mothership not really seen too much these days in Heart of the Swarm. People like to sort of keep the mothership core around a little bit more. But we can see Naniwa is suffering a little bit more damage here. His third base does need to go back up. I mean, if he does not get this back down, he is going to be struggling for minerals and gas very soon because his natural base is just about mined out. The main base is already mined out. And he really needs to not only get some more mining going, but I would love to see some damn upgrades, Naniwa. He's sitting at 0-0 at this point. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but it's quite hilarious regardless. Seeing a 27-minute Terran with no upgrades at all. The mothership now starting to move across, looking like she's going to try and go for a vortex here. Will he get it down? EMP from Naniwa catches out the mothership core, and that goes down in a ball of flames. The Templar, unfortunately, a little bit slow to get into the battle there, and Naniwa takes a nice position. I mean, taking out that mothership core is quite decent. It sets Socke back. It allows Naniwa to move about the map a little bit more freely. He's going to send some of these units back to try and take care of some of these Protoss forces that were blocking out his third base. There is the a couple of EMPs, a little bit too late. The storm goes down. 2 Stalkers sitting here defending this because Socke has 2-1 on his upgrades right now. Naniwa still with 0-0 at this point. He's continually producing quite a lot of units as well, though. He does have a lot of Vikings coming out. We have a total of, well, really? Have we only got 3 barracks? I thought there were more than that. We have 3 barracks out on the map right now for Naniwa. He is, of course, establishing that third base, so he's finally going to get some more minerals coming in. Some Zealots will have their say, though. But it looks like the Vikings and the 1 Marine... Oh, wow, but the storm's coming through. And Naniwa loses SCVs all over the place. And it looks like Socke... I can't actually bring up, like, a unit's lost little... or workers lost counter thingy here, so we'll have to just sort of judge it of how many harvesters these players have. We've got Socke sitting on a very cool, comfortable 45 workers at the 29-minute mark, despite there being no real harassment. And it looks as if he is starting to move forward to try and take out some of these static defenses. I think that Naniwa... Socke not actually focusing down any of the turrets there. I'd loved him to just sort of singular target on those... some of those turrets, but it looks like he is going to have to fall back. The Vikings now coming into play. No upgrades, but there are a lot of Vikings, and they are able to slowly take down a couple of the carriers. Vikings are just decimating up in the sky right now. The Phoenix Force back. The Templar are going to come across, throw down a storm. He's going to have, yeah, I was going to say there will be another one there, and it looks like that tank is on its last legs right now. Socke is still in this game, though. I mean, it's you know, it's not as if Naniwa has taken a firm sort of lead or anything. He's just sort of barely scraping through in this game right now. So he does still have this middle section of the map, which is quite powerful. And I mean, if you know, if there's any way to try and beat back a Protoss, it's by playing very safe and very static like this. But Socke says it's time, moves forward. The Ghosts and Marauders and Marines come about. No medevacs in the sky to heal them up. All of the air investment has gone into Vikings at this point. And units all over the map, little skirmishes going on all around the place. And I mean, Naniwa is starting to really dry up at this point. 36 SCVs are out on the map for him. His mule count has not really gone up at all. Sorry, the mules haven't really been dropped apart from here at the third base, so it looks as if he will be mining this one as quickly as he can. Needs to bring in a little bit more gas as well. We can see he's a little bit resource starved right now when it comes to the gas. Socke, however, rebuilding that carrier fleet. We've got 2 more on the way back at home. We can see these 2 Stargates are building up those carriers. We've got +2 on the shields coming along, +3 on air weapons. This is probably like the most unlikely game you will ever see in very early Wings of Liberty, where +2 on shields is being researched, +3 on air weapons is being researched. It's like, as far as I remember, it was very rare to see something like this happen, but it is certainly happening here. Socke getting a little bit of a beating here at the side, with the tanks now just shooting down on some of his units. The Templar is going to stick around though. This guy going to throw down some storms if he can, but Socke continuing to throw down some harassment here at the third base. But Naniwa starting to really establish himself. We can see a bunker, a couple of tanks, and some Marines and Marauders here holding this base firm and tight. But Naniwa still very low in the gas count at this point. He's not mining at the gas at this third base here, so that's a little bit of a detrimental part of the game right here now for him. Still no upgrades for Naniwa at this point of the game. It is looking very, very dangerous here for him, but it looks like he's going to come across trying to take down some of those Viking storms coming out of those Templar. Thrown down on, well, the second one was basically nothing. A sentry coming forward, getting blasted apart by those tanks. And Naniwa, he's... I don't know, this is kind of holding together for him, but realistically only because of the efficiency of this tank turret setup that he has going. But I mean, you know, Socke has got this gold base mining. He's got another base up towards the top side. We're on 4 bases for our Protoss player. That is quite incomprehensible for this state of the game. But a huge storm thrown down on top of the medevacs and the Marauders and Marines there. Naniwa suffering a lot of damage at the hands of those Templar, the very dangerous Templar of Socke. Socke now coming through with some of his carriers, but he is losing 1, 2 carriers, and the Vikings are getting stormed on again. Still in the very, some of them in very low hit points at this moment in time. But Naniwa is still continuing to try and pressure this base. If he can maybe get rid of this gold, then he could be able to secure his spot in this game. But I mean, he's down at 167 supply. He has basically 0 upgrades compared to his opponent. In fact, it's not even basic. It's exactly no upgrades compared to his opponent. 2 carriers coming along, 1 going down straight away, but the storms have ripped apart those Vikings. And now we can see that Naniwa is forced back yet again. His pressure, while continuous, isn't actually making a big dent in Socke's army. And now with 2-2 on the upgrades done for our Protoss player, we can see that he's going to start to really make a big dent in the army of Naniwa if he wants to push forward. What I would really like to see are a few more Archons here from Socke. Given the fact that the ghost count has depleted a little bit, Naniwa only had 2 ghosts. So here we go, it is go time according to Socke. He's going to move down the ramp. We can see that the Immortals at the front trying to tank up some of that damage. Storms being thrown down all over the Terran units. Zealots chasing them down. More storms. Where are they, Socke? But no, he's just going to blast apart the static defenses. The turrets are being taken apart. And this, well, you know, this could push forward to the end here for Naniwa. I mean, back at home, his unit count is sitting at 4 ghosts, 8 marines, 2 tanks, and 10 Vikings up in the sky, along with 8 marauders. Meanwhile, for Socke, he has 20 zealots, an immortal, an archon, a stalker, 2 carriers, and 6 Templar. But it looks like Naniwa not going to give up just yet, utilizing his ghosts as best as he can. The 3rd base is the only base mining right now for Naniwa. He does have his opponent sitting on a comfortable 2-base mining situation here. And this could be it, because, I mean, that looks very, very uncomfortable for Naniwa right now. And there is a GG. So Naniwa goes down to Socke. Off racing in this game apparently is Naniwa, and unfortunately just, you know, some various mistakes there. But I mean, it is a vintage cast back in the day when these players were still evolving, learning the game, and of course we did get to see both these players grow into really, really strong Protoss players in the EU scene and even internationally, in the case of Naniwa, where he had quite a lot of recognition. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Vintage StarCraft. Please leave some comments on what you thought of not only the cast, but some of the, you know, the old features of the game itself. Please also subscribe to the channel and make sure you jump on Facebook. It's at facebook.com/duckville.casting. I'll catch you next time, guys. Decisions, he'll be in a very powerful position. Let's talk about Mech for a minute here. Mech is a play that formerly in Wings of Liberty was a very strong way to play in Terran versus Zerg. In Heart of the Swarm, I feel like it's